stand as you're able and join in the call to worship? Come, let us gather again in the shadow of the cross of Christ.
We gather to remember the overwhelming evidence of love's ultimate sacrifice.
Who would have guessed that the height and depth, the length and width of God's love might look like this, a forsaken Savior on a cross?
Certainly not us, who are too often lost amid the world's distractions and responsibilities. Not us, for whom such love is offered without cost.
Let us gather again in the shadow of the cross of Christ and commit ourselves to remember the price paid. Let us live our lives in a way that indicates why this Friday is called good.
Thanks be to God, who opened the gates of heaven, that we might have the faith, hope, and love, witnessed in Christ's sacrifice for our salvation.
Let us pray. Gracious, holy, mighty God, as we gather on this day in the shadow of the cross of Christ, we come to confess all that we have done, what we have not done, what we have said, and what we have left unsaid. Oh God, hear us in this time as we lay before you the things that we can speak only to you. Holy God, live within our hearts and open up a space where we can find peace in the midst of suffering. Oh God, give us a place where we can be still and meditate on your holy word and your purpose for our lives. Oh God, we pray that you would place within us your spirit, that we would glorify all that your Son has done for us. He has opened up life and eternity. And in his name we give thanks. Amen.
The scripture this evening is from Luke 23, verses 26 through 31. As they led him away, they seized a man, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming from the country, and they laid the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A great number of the people followed him, and among them were women who were beating their breasts and wailing for him. But Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For the days are surely coming when they will say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed. Then they will begin to say, the mountains, fall on us, and to the hills, cover us. For if they do this when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?
Luke 23, 32 through 43. Two others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing. And they cast lots to divide his clothing, and the people stood by watching. But the leaders scoffed at him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself if he's the Messiah of God, his chosen one. The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, If you're the king of the Jews, save yourself. There was also an inscription over him, This is the King of the Jews. One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he replied, "Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise."
We gather this evening on a Friday that we call Good. And it's ironic to call this a Good Friday. On the one hand, salvation was accomplished, and that is good. And on the other hand, the price was pretty high. And Jesus was crucified unjustly on the cross, with the criminal on his left and on his right. And they had different responses to their situation. And there are two kinds of responses to our own personal suffering as well. We can rail against God and say, "If you are a great and powerful and loving God, why am I in this hellish mess?" Or we can acknowledge that a lot of things are beyond our control. It's not about whether we deserve it or don't deserve it. It just is. And we cry out for mercy in the times of our desperation. The world is full of those who rail against God in their self-righteousness and presume that the creator of the universe is obliged to make their life smooth. And then there are others who own up to being who they are, to the fact that God doesn't owe us anything, and that for any good to come our way is due to grace and mercy, not our merit. And I think Luke records this text about the two thieves to teach us that there is something to be gained in responding to suffering as the person who cries out for grace. The two thieves represent these two ways of responding to suffering and relating to Christ in suffering. And, at first glance, they're very similar. Both are suffering the pain of crucifixion. Both are guilty of the crime. Both see Jesus. They see the sign over his head. They hear the words from his mouth. And both of these are thieves who want desperately to be saved from death, especially death by crucifixion. Most of us have all these things in common with these two thieves, except for the crucifixion part. That there has been or will be suffering in our lives, and none of us will be able to say that we're blameless in our lives. And none of us will be able to say that we don't deserve anything that comes our way. Most of us have seen Jesus on the cross and have heard his claim to kingship and his gracious words of forgiveness. And all of us want to be saved from death one way or another. But then the ways that divide these two thieves and these two categories of people are quite immense. The first thief says, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself. Save us." What a picture of a spiritually destitute, worldly outlook. It's a matter of total indifference to him that he is suffering the due reward of his actions. To him, right and wrong, praise and blame, good and bad, They are of no interest. His one objective is to save his earthly skin. He might even believe Jesus is Messiah, the King of the Jews, but it's only a matter of convenience to him in that moment. He'll take anybody as king that can get him off the cross. That's the way one whole segment of humanity relates to God in suffering. Suffering interrupts our private worldly goals and pleasures, so why not try God? If you're a king, get me out of this mess. If you're God, fix this. It's what I call the carjack theology. How many of you right now can describe the jack in the back of your car? Unless you've had reason to use it recently, you probably can't. It's back there, and when you need it, you pull it out and you use it, or find someone who can use it, and then you put it back in there and forget all about it until another need arises. That's how a lot of folks relate to God. God's not an issue or in mind at all until they're stranded, until the storms come, until the light isn't coming on. Then it's time to pull out God and see what God can do. The penitent thief presents himself before Jesus just as he is. Without pretense, without excuse, without looking for a way out, he was a thief. He knew the consequences of his actions, and he did not dispute that. He simply put himself in Jesus' presence. Jesus, he said, remember me when you come into your kingdom. He placed himself in Jesus' presence and trusted him with the rest. It reminds me of a publican who prayed, Lord, forgive me, a sinner. He placed himself in Jesus' presence and trusted him with the rest. It reminds me of a woman who had been bleeding for years, who placed herself in Jesus' presence and then trusted him with the rest. It reminds me of a group of guys who lowered their sick friends through a roof because the crowds were so immense they couldn't get to Jesus. So they took him, put him on a stretcher, climbed up on the roof of the place where Jesus was and dug a hole and lowered him down and put him in the presence of Jesus without a plan and just trusted Jesus with the rest. It reminds me of Jesus' mother when they were at a wedding in Cana and the wine ran out. She placed the problem upon her son, Jesus, and trusted him with the rest. It reminds me of a boy in a crowd of 5,000 hungry people who gave his lunch to Jesus, trusted him with the rest. It reminds me of a blind man on the side of the road who placed himself in Jesus' presence and did what? Trusted him with the rest. Do you see a pattern? There's all kinds of suffering in this world. Sure, there is definitely suffering we can bring on ourselves without a doubt. And there's suffering that comes our way regardless of what we do. But suffering is not predictable. It's not a matter of logic. It seems random, most of the time unfair, but time and time again, when we who suffer place ourselves in Jesus' presence without pretense, without providing instructions, without excuse, we begin to change. We begin to grow. We heal. Not always in the way we want, not always in the way we expect, not always in the way we predict or the time frame we want, but one thing is sure. When we place ourselves simply, humbly, just as we are in the presence of Jesus Christ, we come away from that encounter transformed. When Jesus had not yet begun his public ministry and was unsure of his power, even then, lives were changed. When Jesus was at the peak of his ministry, lives were healed, lives were changed. When Jesus' last bit of life and breath were escaping his body on the cross, lives were transformed. Death is the most powerful force we know on this earth. It is our greatest fear and our surest threat. But it can't hold a candle to the power and love of God in Jesus Christ. Even as he dies, Jesus saves. We love Easter Sunday. We claim it as the basis of our faith. But there's something that draws us to this business of Good Friday. It's suffering. We haven't experienced anything like crucifixion, but we are no strangers to suffering. None of us. So on this day, this dark and tragic day, we find ourselves here in the presence of Jesus Christ because we know that even here, especially here, we can place ourselves in the presence of Jesus and trust him with the rest. And we will walk out of here better than we came in. Jesus, remember us when you come into your kingdom. Amen. It was now about noon, and darkness came over the whole land until 3 p.m, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, "Father, into your hands I commend my spirit." He said this, and breathed his last. This concludes the service for the evening. I invite you to sit at the foot of the cross over the next day and a half, and we will continue our services on Sunday.